Hey, Shikar.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Awesome. We're just waiting for everybody to join in. John, I think it's going to take us 2-3 minutes before we start.
Perfect.
We've got people flowing in pretty quickly. Thanks a lot for
Yeah,
joining us,
yeah.
everyone. We're going to take a couple of minutes before we start. Please go and grab a cup of coffee. I don't know if you're in that mood, but if you're gonna grab something else to drink, please go for it. Uh, we've got our coffees, and it'd be nice to know where everybody is from here. So please feel free to put probably the city you're from in the chat, and don't forget to select panelists as well as attendees when you do that. We're gonna get started in another 5-7 minutes. San
Kick us
Diego.
off there, San Diego. Yeah, it's always fun seeing where everyone's from. I know we get people from all over the place. Alex in London, awesome.
Robin's from Atlanta, Georgia, awesome.
Atlanta, Vietnam.
You got Hawaii
Awesome.
from Vietnam, awesome. That's awesome. Milwaukee. New Jersey, awesome. This is great. I'm happy to see we've got people from both sides of the country, because that's one of the things that gets tricky, to be able to match or make it work for both the sides and UK. We've got a lot of sessions from UK this time around. It's very good.
I'll go ahead and share my screen, Shikar, if you want, to make sure
Yeah,
everything's
let's
running well.
do that to make sure we're all set, and I think it'll be
Cool.
good to have that.
You see it moving around there?
Yep, I can see your screen.
Awesome, 160 people. That'll be cool.
For everybody who's just joined us, we're gonna start another 2-3 minutes. We're getting set up. Please go and grab a cup of coffee, and don't forget to, of course, put in the chat box where you're from. It will be really nice to know where the group is from.
There we go. Chris in Calabasas. I grew up in Simi Valley, Chris, right over the hill from you guys.
Guys, as we continue to sort of go through this talk today, please remember to put up your comments or questions in the chat window. The questions can go in the Q&A section as well, and don't forget to tag both panelists as well as attendees when you do that, because then everybody doesn't get to see the question, and then they think that we're just talking to ourselves or making stuff up. We don't want anybody to think that.
It's all real.
We'll give it another couple of minutes. Please go and grab that coffee. So I think interesting stuff that we're going to talk about. I only know parts of what we're going to talk about, which is interesting because then I also get to be the attendee, and play parts through the talk. So that's always very interesting. We're gonna give it another couple of minutes or so. John, is that okay?
Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, one thing I thought might be cool too, for the people on the chat is, maybe like a sentence of what your big focus is with e-com right now. Like what's the big challenge you're trying to overcome, or the big opportunity? Is it revenue growth? For some people, it's retention. What's like the big focus for where you guys are at? I think we'll start to see trends of that in the chat as well. It's always good to have context.
Yep, it's always good to know the group you're talking to, because then we can keep the conversation more relatable.
Yep, absolutely. Improving ROAS, definitely, Chris. I know that's a big adventure right now as well with iOS 14 and how all that's rolling out.
Yes, absolutely.
That'd be a good topic to dig into. There's a guy in the ad leagues community, Nick Shackelford, who would be really good, I think, to dig into that on a webinar.
Well, yes, we are recording this webinar, and we will be sending a link to everybody after the webinar is over. But there are a few things we're discussing. There's a giveaway at the end for people who are attending. So we really request everybody to stick around to the end for the giveaway.
It'll be impactful for the business. I know an iPhone or something would be cool, but we'll be giving away some things that'll help you guys drive more conversions, get more ideas on how to scale, all that type of stuff.
Yep. Okay, I think John, let's kick it off, and let's let other registries sort of fall through.
Perfect.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us, John. This is really exciting. As I said, there's only parts of I only know parts of what you're going to talk about, which makes me also an attendee. So I want to sit back and definitely, take a look at, what we have here. Thanks a lot for finding the time. For everybody's benefit, John is a serial entrepreneur. He's the founder of HelpFlow. They have helped more than 100 companies with 24/7 live chat that they run for them, and they do some insane stuff while they do that. I've spoken to a lot of businesses in my career with ConvertCard. We've worked with more than 500. I personally would have spoken to at least 2,000 e-commerce owners. And every time we would talk about chat, it would make people's eye roll because, people think it's the past, but there's something really, crazy that, John and the team have been able to do. And I think the credentials sort of speak for themselves. John, thanks a lot for joining us today. Really excited to see what you have here.
Awesome. Happy to dig in. Yeah, the live chat is one of those things that people often think of it like customer service and order tracking and like all that type of stuff. And it's definitely a good real-time customer service channel. But what we're really going to focus on today is how to use it as more of a sales driver, and really to essentially predict abandons before they happen, and then basically save those with chat. And so I'll go into a lot of tactical stuff. You can definitely apply almost all of this on your own. The 24/7 is the difficult part to do without a big team, but either way, you should be able to apply a lot of this stuff. And so getting into it, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to sort of give some context to everybody on why we decided to talk about this really quickly. I know a lot of the registry, a lot of people that are joining this, webinar are our clients or are a part of our, because they've attended some of the previous webinars we've done. But really, we've spoken a lot about product page optimization, cart page optimization, optimizing parts of the site, figuring out sort of with data what to solve next. But this is more hands-on. This is more, I would say, real and direct. The reason we decided to, sort of collaborate with HelpFlow on this is because the goal with such webinars is to give something to the audience that they can use instantly and see some results. And that's why we decided to talk about it. I think, John, you've already got sort of reasons on why this is important. So I'll leave you to it. Please walk us through everything you have here. And I'll, of course, tend to the chat. So guys, if you have any questions along the way, please ask them. And I'll interrupt John if they're relevant at the moment, or we'll keep them for the end. As we said, we have a giveaway as well towards the end. So let's kick this off. All yours, John.
Perfect. Yeah, I always lead with just growth, right? Like growth in e-com is difficult. It's hard to get to a certain level of sales and then to continue growing on top of that. And so I always kind of lead with that. And I think there's really three reasons or three big parts of what make growth difficult. Traffic is expensive. Paid traffic is a part of most people's strategies. And it's expensive. It's hard to make work. You're always chasing those ROAS numbers. And so it's just, it's difficult, and it gets more difficult with traffic. But if you dig deeper, like one of the things that we're going to look at today is abandons. Like once you get people to the site, abandons is really what makes growth really, really hard, because one of the things we'll start to see as we dig into this data is a big chunk of people that start the checkout process will abandon. Typically, we see around 50%. ConvertCart and the team can optimize that and bring that down for sure. But there's always a big chunk of people that will abandon the purchase process. And many of those will happen really deep in the checkout. I'm going to show you percentages of people that abandon on payment pages, like way deep in the checkout. And the challenge here is like typical email and SMS strategies are definitely important, but they're focused on people that have already abandoned. And one of the things we're going to talk about at the end is Engage by ConvertCart and their approach to email, and like it can be a huge revenue driver. Abandoned carts is part of that. But the key thing to understand about email and SMS or retargeting ads or anything after somebody's abandoned is they've already left. You're trying to get them back, right? And so if you can predict those abandons before they happen and know in advance, okay, this person's starting to slip away, then you can save a lot of those people by engaging with them before they leave. And so I want to show you some data on this. We're going to reflect back on this case study as we kind of go through the session, because I want to show you how serious of a problem abandons are before we get into how to save them. So this particular site, this is a makeup and skincare site, beauty niche, pretty typical stuff. They do big dollars though. These guys do $750K a month at the time. So they're still somewhere around that, a little bit more probably after 2020. But the reason why I always use a prospect with a lot of data is because I want to show you that those numbers are reliable. The percentages throughout the funnel, no matter how I slice it, are reliable. But I also want to be really clear, these numbers will scale down to basically any size store, the percentage of abandons and that type of stuff. Another thing about this site, pretty strong site-wide conversion metrics. Site-wide, they're converting almost 4%. Good average order value. They have a good, back end as well to drive that up over time or to drive up LTVs. But typical site, other than the size, again, because I want to use a big one. But if we look at their abandons, pretty big numbers. And so I'll zoom in on some of this in a second, but around 22,000 people a month start the checkout process with these guys, but don't complete. So 700 plus a day, right? Again, their scale's big. But this is, more than the number of people that actually end up purchasing. The bottom number at the bottom, 19,000, is the number of people that actually end up buying. I'll walk you through what all these numbers mean in a second, but it's a lot of people that abandon. And so these are people that basically got into checkout, didn't arrive at the purchase page. And we can actually slice and dice it in a couple more granular ways. And so that's kind of what I've done here. So I mentioned 22,000 people a month, right? Abandon the checkout process. But 30% of those, right? 6.5K, 6,620, 30% of the abandons in checkout are happening on the payment page for these guys. And so that's if you're visualizing the Shopify funnel, it's basically the last step. Usually the payment's the last step in most checkouts. Right. But the reasons for abandon, like there's a ton of different reasons. I think we could go into some of that during the Q&A. But unexpected shipping costs, objections that they have related to the product tend to surface at the end at the payment page when they're ready to send some money. But the key takeaway I want you guys to get out of this is lots of abandons, but a lot of them will skew towards the end. And so if you can engage with those people that already have really high intent, you're able to save a good number of those. So digging in, I mentioned I was going to walk through the amount of abandons, but digging in, the typical cart abandonment strategies are definitely things you should be doing. So cart abandonment emails, for example, many people use Klaviyo, MailChimp. There's a lot of options. So cart abandonment emails work. And by the way, one of the things I mentioned earlier about ConvertCart is the Engage offer that they do, which is essentially Klaviyo plus services, right? It's not actually Klaviyo, it's their own tech, so it's even better, so they can get deep. But if you get email right, not just cart abandonment, it can drive like 30% of your revenue. So if you haven't nailed email, you'll want to take advantage of that offer at the end to kind of walk through their strategy. But bottom line, like cart abandonment strategies are not new, right? Email, SMS, those types of things are super important. You're probably running retargeting ads to people that have abandoned. And so that's also something that's important. But the thing with, typical cart abandonment stuff is they don't address like why someone abandoned in the first place. They're trying to convince them to come back or give them an offer to come back and win them back, right? In this case, you want to think of like, why did they abandon in the first place? And it's usually not because they forgot and left something in the cart, or they just need a discount, right? They want 10% off and that'll solve everyone's problem. It's usually questions, right? So they had a question about compatibility of the product, or certainty questions around, is it the right product for exactly what their use case is, or risk reversal questions like, what if I don't like it when it arrives? Can I send it back, right? Like Amazon, right? Amazon makes it super easy to send everything back with Prime. And so like people need that risk reversal. And so these are the types of things that are subjective, right? They require a conversation or some sort of back and forth to be able to address those questions. And so even though live chat, people think of it like a customer service tool and order tracking and returns and all that stuff, it's definitely much more of a sales driver if you use it, in this particular way. So going back to that case study, right, and looking at just the people that abandoned on the payment page, like what's the size of the opportunity, right? If you get this right, and you focus on saving people, they're getting 6,600 people a month on the credit card screen that abandon, and they're converting almost 4% of everybody, right? So they're converting a lot of people that come to the site, and they could drive a ton of traffic. If you could convert basically 1 in 5 of just the payment page. And I want to pause on this for a second. 20% for any conversion number sounds like ridiculous. It's really high. But remember, this is all the way at the end. This is credit card screen. They've already given you shipping, product. They've selected the product. They've done all the things, right? So if you save 20% of those, it turns into 50K a month, right? 600 grand a year. If it's 15%, it's a little bit lower, right? I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but 38, somewhere around that probably. And so it's big dollars if you can get it right. And so that's really what I want to dig into today is like, how do you predict those abandons in advance before they get to the payment page? And then how do you save those sales? And like Shakar mentioned, I'll run through this slide super fast. That's basically what we do. We run 24/7 live chat teams for over 100 e-commerce stores, and we've done millions of chats over the years. We've been in business for 6 years. And we've driven over $100 million in chat revenue for a ton of different types of e-commerce stores. But again, like you do not have to work with us to drive some of these results. Like I want to show you tactically how you can do that on your end. And so that's really what we'll dig deep into today. So stepping back, live chat really fits in to drive conversions in basically 3 places. You should definitely have it on the entire site, but like the places where you should focus in is checkout abandons. Like I mentioned just now, I'll get a little deeper here in a second. Second is product and category pages. So keeping track of when people are slowing down in their search process and engaging there. And then the last thing I want to touch on is actually part of the email flows that we mentioned earlier. And so basically integrating live chat as a call to action in your cart abandonment emails can work really well. So we'll touch on that at the end also. Awesome. But these are really like the 3 pillars, right? And so digging into some of this, checkout, I'll move a little bit quick through checkout because we already touched on some of it, but the basic goal of what you're trying to do here is predict that someone's going to abandon and then engage before they abandon. That's basically what you're trying to do. And so in checkout, basically what you can do is you can track if somebody gets into checkout, but then is not getting to the end of the checkout process, right? So you can do it based on what page they're on essentially, or data that you can pass back from checkout. But the powerful thing to do is to track changes in velocity is how I would describe it, which sounds a little complicated, but basically what I'm saying is if somebody moves quickly through selecting the product and then they add it to their cart and they move quickly through filling out the contact information, they move pretty quickly through the shipping information, and then they slow down on the payment page, you can track that change in velocity and say, okay, this person is starting to get confused, kind of like a retail store, right? If somebody walks up and down the aisle and then kind of gets confused and they look a little frustrated on their face, you can track that stuff in real life, right? Visually, I guess. But on e-com, you can do the same thing. So tracking the changes in velocity and then engaging with somebody as they start to slow down enables you to spark up that discussion. One thing I always touch on, and it's a little small in this screenshot, but what I want to emphasize is you don't actually have to get that ninja on what should the greeting say? Like exactly what should the sentence say when the agent, engages? The wording does not matter at nearly as much as the timing. And if you get the timing right, you can literally have very just informal, not necessarily personalized looking greetings. One greeting that we found performs really well is basically, I wanted to let you know I'm online. Do you have any questions I can help with? Very, very simple. Not saying, welcome back, Shakar. We haven't seen you since Tuesday. Do you want to discuss, not like you could get pretty creepy with it of like integrating personal data and products and stuff, but it works really well just to kind of engage based on trying to help them.
So basically interactions as opposed to interruptions.
I like it. We're going to use that as a tagline. I like that. Yes, it's you're trying to do what people do in the offline world. Like that's basically what you're doing. If you go into a high-end retail store and you look confused as you're going up and down the aisle, a good associate's going to walk up and say, hey, can I help you find something? And you're going to say, actually, yes, I'm trying to find a gift for my wife. And I mess up our anniversary every year. And, I got to make this one great, or whatever the question is. And so you want to get that right. They don't walk up to you and say, hey, sir, can you fill out this paperwork before I can talk to you? Right. And they also don't say something to you right when you walk in, other than welcoming you to the store. Right. So that's what you're trying to do. And so integrating chat into the checkout and engaging there can drive a lot of sales. But that's probably what you were thinking as you come into a webinar like this, right? Like predicting and saving abandons. People think of, okay, checkout abandons, cart abandons, like that's part of the puzzle, but you can also do this much earlier in the funnel. So when somebody's a highly engaged product viewer, that's another place where you can save a lot of sales. And so I wanted to use an example here. This is not a client of ours, but I wanted to use kind of just a general, skincare example to show you some data or to show you some of the navigation flow and where you would engage. And so imagine somebody on their site, they're looking at their makeup and skincare products, and they have a lot of categories on this particular site. You can see in the menu, and a pretty wide range of products also, right? So you can see that from the top navigation. Shakar and I actually talked in one of our podcast episodes about the importance of navigation. So I would actually say these guys could probably improve the navigation side, but that's a topic for another day. But imagine a visitor when they get into an actual category, they start to filter by various criteria. They filter by color. They're basically looking for the right product for what they're trying to do, right? And so what you can do is you can track if they get to this point, but they don't move into the product page. And so again, they're very interested because they've looked at categories, they've filtered those categories, they're trying to find something, they're not finding it. And you can track this based on a number of things. You can track it obviously based on time on page and things like that. You can also correlate that with not clicking through to a product page. You're trying to find people that are looking for something but not getting there. And technically, you can track inner page activity also. So you can track, like I mentioned, the filtering on the side. If somebody gets into a product page, you can track if they go back and forth between different products, which I'll get into. But bottom line, you're tracking that engagement of looking for something, but not actually finding it because they didn't get to a product page, right? So you can engage with them here to spark up that conversation. Or if they do get to a product page, they're going to be looking at information. They're going to be configuring colors in this case, right? They've got a couple different colors, but not moving into the cart or not saving a product on some sites, right? Like you heart a product or something like that. And so what you're doing there is you're tracking, deep engagement in the product page. You're tracking, clicks within the page. So did they click on the what makes it different section? Did they click on the ingredients to open that up, even though I already did that? You're basically tracking, again, inner page activity, deep engagement, interest, but not moving into the actual cart. And in that case, again, you're inviting them to chat. And to be clear, when you're inviting people to chat, as I'm describing all of this, you really only do like one invite per visit, so per session that they're on the site. So you want to tailor your greetings to find out like where are the main abandons happening and what's the best place to engage. Usually it's in product search or product sections, but you want to engage at that right time. And so again, going back to the case study, right? Like what's at stake for these particular guys, right? They drive around 350,000 visitors per month. So big site. And as we dig a little deeper, we can see about 163,000 people view at least one product, but don't move into the checkout process, right? So there's some engagement there. But I always try to dig deeper and say, okay, like how many people are viewing multiple products, right? Some sort of deep engagement number. And I'm going to show you at the end of the session how you can get some of this data for your particular site. If you have Google Analytics, that's all you need to get this data. But bottom line, what I'm doing here is saying, okay, show me the people that are really, really engaged, but not moving forward. And how many of those do I think we can save? And looking at this particular site, there's 87,000 people that are in that bucket. Remember, they're converting almost 4% of everybody that comes to the site. So it's probably reasonable to convert, half of that for people that are super, super engaged. Usually we would see that much closer to the site-wide conversion rate. But again, just to be conservative on these numbers, turns into 1,700 purchases a month or 66 grand a year in revenue. And that's another 800K for these particular guys, this site. So what you're trying to do here again is just group people by interest. If they're super interested in the products but not moving forward, help them out. You'll never be able to convert all of them, but you can convert a pretty big chunk of them if you can just handhold them with the questions that they're having.
Yeah, that actually sort of automatically answers a couple of interesting points that Sitaram has thrown here. The first is the velocity slowdown can happen because of many factors, including the customer being away from the website and that kind of stuff. There's of course a certain percentage of people that'll have that, right, John? I mean, we're not of course after those people. The other thing that you also mentioned is you've got to watch how many products that they've seen and then interrupt or sort of interact with them. One of the points here is, with personalization, can we share products with them basis their preferences or interests? Can we not do that? So I mean, ConvertCart does that, but I think the difference between this and that is with chat, you're going to be doing, you're going to be very specific to each user. You're trying to want to talk to them and understand what's happening as opposed to leaving it to the algorithm.
Exactly.
I don't want to say it doesn't work because we do it. But I think you've got to try both the things. You've got to let the algorithm jump in, let them interact with that. If that doesn't work, that's when you jump in with all your guns and you get in and chat with them. I think most website end up leaving that to a bot of some kind, and I think that's where it goes sideways. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I know we went into on that interview with Shikar was kind of the levels that are important. So like you need to have just a well-designed site to be able to find what you're looking for. Then you need to really have good navigation that enables people to kind of search for what they're finding. Then you need to have good search also. So navigation is different than search. And then if people can't find what they're looking for, the chat experience needs to be good, right? And so if you get all of those things right, you can help people find what they're looking for. And as long as you're driving good traffic, which most people are, if you track that, like if you're spending a good amount on paid ads, like you're probably at the point where okay, like the traffic's reasonable. By changing some of the on-site experience and getting search and navigation dialed in, you can drive a lot more sales from those people. And the other thing I would touch on too is, so we're able in chat, like you're able to really personalize that experience directly to the user because they're telling you what they're looking for, right? So like an example I use is like we have a client that sells iPhone cases. I don't think you can see it because of the Zoom, but I have an invisible iPhone in my hand. So they sell cases, right? Somebody comes, they're asking for a case. They're saying, hey, I just got the new iPhone. My kids are crazy. So I'd like it to be very durable, but not look like a brick. I want it to look good. I don't know what to get, right? So you can make some recommendations based on that. But then you can start to layer in other recommendations too. So like, recommending the glass, right, for the screen or those types of things and giving them a discount on that. Very high margin products. The actual glass is super, super high margin for those stores. And so you can personalize the sales conversation. And then what you'll start to notice is the patterns of what people are asking. And then you push that back into the navigation or push that back into a product recommendation quiz funnel or those types of things to say, okay, here's the lessons from chat that we can now automate in the algorithm. And so it definitely feeds each other, if that makes sense.
Yep. There's also Chris asking if there are any sort of rule of thumb or general percentages you would want to share, which are, your add to cart or reach checkout or these micro goals that you would complete with people. That would be super helpful.
Yeah, I think you guys would have.
I
think you guys would have really good data on that, Shikar.
Yeah. So the thing with that kind of numbers is that Chris, we are happy to take a look at your site and sort of come back to you with benchmarks basis the industry that you are in. But I would recommend everybody to never follow any kind of sort of thumb rules
Yeah.
with that kind of percentages. You've got to crack the funnel for, because there's a certain mix of traffic you're bringing to the site. There's a reason they landed up on your site. When they did land up on your site, there's a reason they are interacting with the things they're interacting with. So it's really all about getting into the data or having somebody do that for you. Somebody like John's team, somebody like ConvertCard, or somebody else. You maybe had an analyst to do that for you, to nail down exactly why. It's sort of, it as strange as it may sound, you can actually nail down this stuff to the T. I mean, you can pretty much 100% understand why your users are behaving in a certain way, and if not, you can run tests to then nail down what the right way is to have them behave in a certain way. So that's 100% doable.
Yep, absolutely. So the one thing I would say on that, Chris, is not to be alarmed if you see 50% of your add to carts don't actually initiate checkout, and then 50% of your initiate checkouts don't actually end up completing. Again, like a lot of it depends on your site and traffic and niche and like all those types of things. Price point is a big one too. But I often see people just like freak out in forums when it's like, oh my God, I got 1,000 add to carts and I got only 400 purchases, right? Like there is a drop off in abandons, and the name of the game is basically optimizing to save as many of those as possible, whether it's with automated approaches or whether it's with the chat approach. But 50% add to cart abandon, 50% initiate checkout is not abnormal, is kind of the way I would answer it. But again, it's best to benchmark yours and then get the best practices in place and see kind of where you level out, because there's a lot of factors at play. But let me show you guys the email part real quick, because this is something that I think is kind of counterintuitive, but it can drive a lot of results to basically integrate live chat into your cart abandonment flows. And so for cart abandonment flows, like most stores use some sort of variation of a reminder and then a discount and then a Hail Mary discount, right? Like some variation of that. But that doesn't address what we talked about earlier, that people abandon because they have questions, right? And so a reminder or a discount doesn't necessarily, address that. And so what you can do is configure chat as a call to action in the emails. This is a screenshot, pretty basic. But essentially what you're doing is in the cart abandonment emails, you're essentially having a call to action of like, hey, did you have a quick question? Click here to chat with our team. They're online now. Like whatever you want the call to action to say, but essentially rather than here's your discount, here's your cart, did you forget it? It's, hey, do you have a question? Like we can chat with you right now and solve it. And then when they actually click that, it goes back to the site. It has the order already open, just like a normal cart abandonment email. But it also has the chat box open on the screen, and it's connected directly to a live agent. And so the technical part of this is actually pretty simple. It's a link that goes back to your site, just like your current one, just like your current cart abandonment links, but it just has a tag at the end to open up the chat box. And it enables you to basically spark up conversations from those emails. And so it will make your cart abandonment emails perform just significantly better, because you're essentially sparking up those conversations. And Shayla, you had a good question about the Shopify Plus side. We can dig into that during Q&A. Testing this directly with Shopify without Shopify Plus is a little bit challenging, but getting cart abandons and engaging with cart abandons, you can get them when they exit the checkout, they go back to the website. That's pretty common. So we can dig into that during Q&A. But basically what I'm saying with this one is use cart abandonment emails for sure. Use email much more effectively than just cart abandonment emails, which Shakar can dig into in a second. But also layer in call to actions to chat with your team, to take somebody from an asynchronous email conversation into a live conversation through chat, right? It can make those perform really well. And you can also use that in other types of emails, reorder emails, all types of things. So quick recap is chat and checkout, super, super powerful. Using chat invites at the right time based on where they're at in their product journey is super powerful. And having cart cart recovery emails that have chat as a call to action. All of this is super powerful, can drive a lot of results. One quick thing I want to touch on. So absolutely, you should be doing live chat. You can do live chat yourself to get these basics in place. But I always touch on these mistakes to avoid, because chat is one of those things that can hurt your conversion rate if you do it poorly. It doesn't just not work, it'll actually cause your conversion rate to go down, right? And the reason why is people that would have bought without chat will engage, get annoyed if you make some of these mistakes, and then a portion of those will not end up buying. They would have bought without chat, but then chat stops them from buying. So you want to be very careful with this. The basics is don't use pre-chat forms. So, conversion 101, don't put friction in front of them wanting help. If somebody wants to chat with you to ask a question before buying a product, just make it simple, right? Like, let them ask their question. You can gather this stuff in other ways. Number two is respond really quickly. This is, one of the most important parts here is first response time. If you have the chat on your site, you connect it to an agent right away, or if you have greetings on your site and then somebody responds, if they don't get a response within 10 seconds or ever, which does happen, like people go to lunch, they'll forget they left it on, they'll be on a phone call. It drops the conversion on that cohort of people a ton because they engaged, they thought somebody was there, completely interrupted them, and then nobody actually responds to get the sale. So you want to respond within a max of 10 seconds. 12 seconds is where basically that conversion starts to fall through the floor. So definitely you want to focus on that. And then the last thing I would touch on here is nights and weekends. Having chat during business hours is better than not having chat at all, for sure. But if you look at your traffic and sales, most sites are going to see anywhere from like 30 to probably 50% of their traffic and sales will come outside of business hours on nights and weekends, including B2B. We see that. It's kind of surprising. There's a lot of traffic and sales outside of business hours. But nights and weekends is really important. So the more chat coverage you can have, the better, right? I'm obviously biased because that's what we do. But bottom line, if you look at your data, it's helpful to have somebody there during that time. So these are kind of key things to get right if you're going to do it yourself. And then we wanted to share these resources as well. Shikar and I can kind of dig into these in a moment, but I thought it'd be good to just kind of have this on the screen while also, going into some of these questions, which I'll kind of let you moderate the questions a bit, Shikar, so you can make sure that we hit everything. I know there's a lot going on.
Actually, the first one is a question that I also had. What about Shopify Plus? It's or not having Shopify Plus, as a matter of fact, that's one of the key pain points that I always see with Shopify merchants. We solve that in a different way. We not optimize Shopify checkout flows. I don't know. Can chat sit inside there? And are you guys able to sort of, work with that?
It can within Shopify Plus. So if you have Shopify Plus, you can chat directly within the checkout and do a whole bunch of other stuff. If you're not on Shopify Plus, what I typically see is having chat on the website, not in the checkout, but you can track if somebody gets into the checkout, and then when they abandon, they almost always click the back button or click the logo to get out of checkout, back to the website, and then they leave. Like vast majority of the time they do that. And I think it's subconsciously something to do with, like, they want to make sure the order's canceled, especially if it's on the payment page, they do that. Right. And so you can engage with them when they do that. It's one step better than an exit intent pop-up, which is not very good. But it's a good start to do. And what I typically tell people is, get the live chat stuff in place without going straight to Shopify Plus, unless you have another reason to go to Plus. There'll be a lot of abandons you can save earlier in the funnel. And then once you start to save those sales, I think you'll start to see the clear business case to upgrade to Shopify Plus, solely for the sake of getting chat into the checkout, because you can drive a lot of sales. And that's part of why they lock it up. They know how valuable it is to do stuff with the checkout process, and they charge for it.
That's actually one of the reasons why we encourage stores to use an Ajax cart or emphasize on the cart experience on Shopify, because that's sort of the neglected part of the site. But they underestimate the fact that the part of the traffic that's going to visit the cart page on Shopify, they are probably your highest quality customers. They're reconsidering their orders. They're thinking about what they've added to the cart. They're probably leaving some stuff out, considering to buy. So these people are the ones that are in the consideration state of the funnel, and you definitely want to make a solid case there for your business there. So that's definitely one important thing. Thoughts on using SMS for these links rather than website chat? So I think you spoke about emails also. The SMS is sort of the talk of the town. I can see companies running ads like crazy about SMSs.
Yeah.
Most of the people don't know, but from I'm sitting in Bangalore right now. If you buy a new cell phone number in the city that I'm in right now, or anywhere in this country in India, you will get hit with promotional SMSs almost half an hour later without having ever given that number to anybody else.
They
So
sell that data. Yeah.
so we are sort of at the end of the SMS marketing curve as a country. But for the US, for Canada, UK, it's never going to happen. But for US at least, that's just starting to pick up. So what are your thoughts about that, John?
Yeah, so SMS rocks. Definitely powerful.
I
What I
know.
tell people is SMS fits into your abandoned cart emails and the rest of your email sequences as another touch point, and you want to layer that in with email depending on how recent the trigger was, right? So if somebody abandons the cart, doing an SMS 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, and then doing email 1 hour, 2 days, et cetera, after that.
Right.
That's a good flow. As far as having SMS directly on the site as the primary way to do the chat, typically what we see work best is having the chat function directly on the site, but having it mobile optimized, so that basically you can see what page the visitor's on. You can adjust the greetings based on what they're doing, rather than moving the conversation off into messages or Apple Chat or those types of things.
Right.
So that's something to consider. The other part I would mention with SMS, and we might be working on something related to this, is if you nail the replies to SMSs. So let's say you send out SMS broadcasts about a promotion, or you send out, SMS cart recovery messages, which you should definitely do. A lot of stores don't have a process to reply to those messages. If somebody replies, so their visitor replies and says, "Oh yeah, I had a question about," I'm typing with my thumbs, by the way, but so I had a question about, whatever the product was. A lot of stores just handle those as email tickets. So they respond within, best case 4 hours, 2 hours, right? If you respond to your SMS replies within like 10 seconds, 8 seconds, like run it like a chat, it causes the SMS to perform insanely higher. And so that's something to focus on getting right too, is if you're on SMS, it's more of a chat channel. Respond to those messages when they come in lightning fast. And that's something that we're working on.
Yep.
We'll announce soon to be able to do those replies super
Yeah.
fast.
So, given how well we know SMSs, to be honest, I think I strongly feel that emails are still underrated.
Yeah.
Of the total number of businesses that we've worked with, the ones that have had the lowest cost of acquisition of a customer, the best lifetime values of customers, the best repeat rates, the longest lapse points. Now, lapse point is the point from where there's no return, right? If a customer has bought from you once and they didn't buy from you for 120 days, then they're never going to buy from you. So that number of days you would sort of tag with sort of point of no return for customers is a lapse point. So we've seen the companies that do well there are the ones that deliver a solid on-site experience. So you bring the chat in, you deliver a solid UX, but also companies that have a super strong email strategy. So I think as exciting as SMSs are, I think I very rarely see companies doing a good job with email. I know for a fact that we've been able to, and I've seen companies even without us being able to drive 30, even 40% of the revenue from emails. That's the cheapest way you can make money. There goes your ROAS. I remember somebody saying that was a super important goal for them, Chris, I think. So if you're going to be driving a large, the bigger chunk of revenue you drive from emails and chat and stuff like this, your ROAS is going to go through the roof, because there's no cost of doing stuff like this. Is bonus. This is extra revenue, this is money you've left on the table in the first place. So I think SMSs are great, but they're going to have a short life. I'm saying this purely because I come from, that's where that's the sort of country I am in. I mean, if I was to show you my cell phone, I think we get about 40 to 50 promotional SMSs a day from people we've never subscribed to.
Wow. That's wild. Yeah, that wouldn't happen as much in the US, but it's starting to a little bit. I think what's going to change is just, yeah, robocalls. That's a whole nother world. I don't even, everything goes to voicemail now. And Apple does have that new feature where it just automatically goes to voicemail. I love that. But as a marketer, I feel bad using it.
Yeah.
But one of the things I was going to mention is I think the reason why SMS is like all the rage right now is just the engagement rate so high. Like when you send out SMSs, the open rates are like ridiculously high. But that
Right.
changes, right? If you compare that to India, I'm sure it's drastically different, right? Because it's
Right.
like if you're getting 40 a day, you're not even looking at them.
That's true. So yes, I mean, I think that's absolutely true. There's another interesting one, which is instead of forwarding customers to the website again through that link, can we attach reviews and videos related to the products that they saw and had chosen before abandoning the cart? It's an interesting point, but I mean, the assumption is that anything that your site could have already answered was answered. So you're really looking to answer stuff that has not already been answered. You're looking to do stuff that has not already happened through the experience. So if they've gone to the point of adding something to the cart, I think it's a fair assumption to make that they saw the video, they saw the reviews, they were interested in the product, they're in the consideration stage, they're thinking about something that is unique to their use case. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah. I mean, what you're trying to do is spark up a conversation, and that can be via email, that can be through chat. But again, like people abandon because they have questions, or they don't buy because they have questions most of the time. And so anything you can do to surface those questions is good. One thing I will tell you is if you start to see trends, and you will see trends in this, you'll start to see trends in what those questions are. So people will ask about, I'll use delivery time because that's an easy one, but that's usually not what it is.
Right.
But you'll see trends of what people ask in the chats.
Right.
Then what you need to do is answer those questions, close those sales, but then go back and make sure your purchase funnel directly addresses those questions. And what you'll notice is less people will abandon. And when they do abandon, they'll stop asking those questions. It'll be for other reasons. So the things that happen in the chat can feed other things you can automate earlier in the funnel as insight. But typically once they have abandoned, you want to spark those conversations up.
Okay, great. So how are predictive chat triggers configured? So you're basically prompting them. So I think you can see them. You can see each user on your end, John. Is that, and you're manually triggering the chat for the ones that are relevant? How I mean, what work is
So we
going
have it.
on?
Yeah, we have it automated. There's a couple ways to do it. The basics are based on site activity. So essentially what you're doing is you're looking at the pages that they're on and which pages are going between, and then having exclusion. So if somebody has looked at multiple products but has not hit the cart yet, then you can trigger an invite to chat with them. Those are the basics. One of the things I mentioned is tracking velocity. So tracking velocity changes if somebody's starting to slow down in their navigation process or purchase process. In those cases, the technical way that we do that is with Google Tag Manager. So we basically track the activity that's happening in Google Tag Manager. We track the timing of when each of those activities is happening. And then in the data layer in Google Tag Manager, we are flagging changes in that time and in that activity for the user, but also for the entire site, and saying, okay, this person's slowing down. We should engage with them. I mean, I was going to say it's not super hard to do. It's not super hard to do in Google Tag Manager if you know Google Tag Manager and like you're into that stuff. That's something that took us a while to like get dialed in, and then we realized, oh my God, like the power of this thing's crazy. And so like we use it extensively now. I would say if you're running chat yourself, focus on basically number of pages without hitting the cart, and then track your response rate to those greetings over time. If you have a lot of greetings where people just don't respond, it means you're inviting at the wrong time, and you want to change those a bit. When people respond with actually yes, and then they ask their question, right? I'm online. Do you have any questions I can help with? Actually yes, and then they ask whatever their question is. That's when you know you haven't dialed in.
I guess that's where you guys come in. So we're gonna leave it at that. So then there's so I think we've got a few more questions. We're gonna address these. Please put your questions in the chat window. We're taking them up right now. We only have a few more minutes to go. What are your thoughts on the optimal time to grab the user's email or phone number? Do you use predictive triggers? So that's right up our alley, as a matter of fact. So yes, we do that all the time. We are able to predict when or where somebody is going. So our model is more machine learning oriented. What we would normally do is we'd look at everybody who's converting on a site. We look at what are the common data points for those users. We look at where do they come from, what do they look at, how do they behave, the device, channel. So we watch up more than 140 data points for each user. And that tells us, what are the ones that don't look like those people. So we know that, there's a group of traffic or a large chunk of traffic that's not looking like your ideal customer. And the intention is to intercept or ask or interrupt their journey, to ask them for their email address at a time when they are most at ease. You don't want to interrupt, as I said, interaction over interruptions is the goal. Also, there's a big use case for non-intrusive email opt-ins. So as opposed to popping something up right in the face, you may want to subtly ask them for their email on a part of the page, and don't always sort of try to do it in exchange for discounts, right? So if you're selling, for example, furniture, you could have some kind of resource that's going to make their life easy while they're furniture shopping, right? So 10 reasons why, or 10 top, wood qualities to choose from, or something on those lines. You really need to think outside of the box, outside of the discounts that you can give. And yes, doing it predictively is the future. That's the real way to do it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then we have, do we maintain, so this is an interesting question for you, John. Do you maintain a knowledge base of abandoned carts for quick future responses to questions that sort of, maybe an FAQ of some sort?
Yeah. So we absolutely do. So the main part of our business is learning the client's business to be able to really represent the brand well and answer questions. And so the knowledge base is a really, really important part of how we do that. And so we have a methodical process for that. It's covered on our website. So you can dig in there if that's the frame of how you're asking, is like, how do we learn the business? But it sounds more like what you're saying is like tracking like why people abandon, and then being able to kind of feed that back, or keeping track of why people abandon, so you can use that in future responses, but also use that to improve the overall site. And so, best way to do that on your end would just be keeping track of those chats and maybe tagging them as abandons or tagging them as pre-sale or those types of things. And then periodically going through those and looking for the trends. But we definitely have a super detailed way of how we build knowledge base to be able to answer the questions.
Right. The last one, I don't think this is really a question. You mentioned earlier how to set up those filters in GA, for the screens that you were showing. Basically,
Yeah.
how to see those funnels. I think that's a part of what you do for your clients, I believe.
Yeah. So on this audit, on the abandons audit, that's basically what we would do is with your site,
Awesome.
we will basically go through exactly what we went through on today's session, but with your actual data. So we'll slice up your data and be able to see it all. From a high level, the way that's done is with segments in Google Analytics. So you could find some tutorials on it, but basically at the top, there's the segments, and then you're essentially setting segments sequentially for people that did these actions. So they looked at multiple product pages, but they did not end up in the cart during that same visit. That's essentially what you're doing at a high level. But that's something I'd be happy to dig into on the abandons audit. Like basically what we'll do is see where everyone's abandoning on your site, see how many of them there are, and then basically walk through like how to best save them with live chat, whether it's with us or not. What I always tell people with those with these sessions is like even if we don't work together, you'll get a ton of insights from the process because we worked with so many stores. And there is no big pitch or limited time offer or anything weird in the sales process. Like we literally just do what we did on your site. We let the numbers speak for themselves. And some clients end up working with us because it usually ends up being a no-brainer when they see the actual numbers. We say, okay, I think we can convert. We need to drive $12,000 a month in additional revenue, and there's a clear path here to 45.
Yeah.
Like that's not a hard sales pitch. But worst case scenario, you'll see how to drive some of those sales yourself and be able to improve cart recovery and improve conversion. So either way, I definitely recommend doing it.
I highly recommend the session. I have seen it with a couple of clients that's actually how both of our companies partnered. I was able to recommend a couple of clients to HealthFlow. They came back with their minds blown. Then I went in and saw the demo. I came back with my mind blown. Then John saw our demo. He left with his mind blown. So it was
everywhere.
Yeah. So that's a lot of gray matter on the walls. But yeah, that was really, really helpful and informative, John. Guys and girls, of course, We really look forward to hearing from you on both the fronts. The first being the email strategy session that we are running. I promise you will walk away with your mind blown. As far as emails go, we are doing it for free. You're free to walk away with whatever we tell you. No commitment. And the same thing goes for the abandonments audit, where we're going to look at, I mean, of course, John's team is going to look at some really, they're going to look at actual data and come back with actionable stuff that you can do. Thank you so much for finding the time to speak with us this Tuesday. John, thanks a lot. This was really, really helpful. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Happy to help, guys. And make sure you get your abandons dialed in, and let us know if you have any questions on either side. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, John. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.